Hello, Janine. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. Yeah, I'm having a super positive day today. Thank you.
That's
Um, and thank you for adding to that by gracing us with your company today. We
Oh
appreciate
man,
it.
this is so cool. I was really excited. I was like, it's always nice to hear like a New Zealand accent and do something back home. So I'm happy.
Because for those who aren't in the know, you're based in New York City, right?
Oh, I'm actually in LA now.
Oh, you're in LA. I'm sorry, but you in New
I
York? I
was in
totally
New York.
fucked that up.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
last
okay,
time I saw you, I was in New York. So
okay, cool.
yeah.
And last time I saw you, we were in hospital together. Not because we had a car accident, but we were both getting surgery for different
The
like
sports
injuries.
injuries.
Sports
Both of us.
injuries. I love a sports injury surgery experience.
Absolutely. That was definitely what like one of those little highlights in my life. It's just like a random cool
Good
moment.
memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you getting an operation on?
That one was my Achilles.
Right.
Since then, I've had my ACL repaired
Oh,
too.
damn.
And since then, you've had multiple. What have you had since then?
Yeah, I had like a lower leg reconstruction when I saw you got all these pins and shit put on my foot. I just had surgery maybe the 14th of June. I'd severed a tendon in my foot and I had to get that repaired. Uh, I've had, yeah, just those two since I've seen you, fortunately. But over a lifetime, I've had like my nose reconstructed, my hand fixed up. Like, I'm grateful to live in New Zealand because if I was living in America, I'd have to pay for all that, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah, the system. Like when I tore my Achilles, I tore it playing basketball in New York, and I flew back home with a torn Achilles just so I could have surgery because it was going to be like $20,000 to have
Wow.
surgery. And I was like, so what do you do if you don't have medical? Like I didn't, but I was lucky enough that I could go home to New Zealand. I felt very blessed, but I was like, so if you don't have that option, you just get stuck with like a foot that's just like this for the rest of
For real, right? Like, it's a really unfair system in the United States unless you have like private healthcare, huh?
Yeah, it was definitely like, and I mean, but I noticed that when I first went to New York, because when I first went for the year, I was like, I got really sick and I couldn't afford to like go to the doctors, and I was like, this is, it was definitely like a real eye opener to like what it's like to, not have money in the States.
Yeah, right.
And like I said, and I know I'm blessed enough that I have New Zealand, so like, worst case scenario, like I always had a worst case scenario. I could be like, hey, dad, mom, please
Right?
help me get home.
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of people lose sight of how lucky we are down here. Even like you say, hey, dad, mom, like I think a lot of us can focus on what we don't have in our lives, and just the fact that you might have supportive parents, it's a huge head start in life, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Or I mean, just even someone that can pull together enough money to help you get on a plane flight, like, to come home to deal with your stuff, like that kind of thing is definitely like a huge blessing.
Mm, mm,
And I
mm,
think New
mm.
Zealand as a community is really good like that too. Like even if you don't, like New Zealand is really good at banding together and like helping each other out when you need to. You know what I mean?
It's because it's a small country. We're grateful. I guess that's one of the. I often am like, fuck, man. I wish I was overseas and like nothing's happening here. And like to be honest, I can be negative in that outlook. But right now, I'm like, oh, yo, New Zealand rules. We're so far from like the pandemic.
Oh my God, the rest of the world is like, New Zealand is amazing. I want to go there. And New Zealand's like, nope.
Yeah. Which is good. I'm fully in support of that. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, I worry about my friends overseas, and I worry about not just my friends. Like I have compassion for people around the world who are suffering through a whole range of things
Yeah.
that have stemmed from the pandemic. But yeah, I'm at the same time grateful here. There's gonna be a whole bunch of people who are just watching this and like, who is this girl? And I always find it best if you answer that question yourself. Um,
Okay.
yeah, you're
Um,
a singer-songwriter.
yeah, I'm a singer, songwriter, producer. Originally from New Zealand, now live in the States. Yeah, I'm a general creative. I mean, that's my main title. I also do a lot of artwork, play different instruments, and do run the business, like have my label. So
Mhm.
it's just basically staying busy, trying to do everything.
How has the journey? Because you got signed to Atlantic Records, right?
I did.
Was that prior to moving to America 8 years ago, or is that during your time there?
No, so I've had like different experiences. So when I first went like to America, I booked a month there in New York, and I just booked a bunch of shows. Like I just kind of lied about how many people I could pull, and I managed to get like residency. I did like 6 shows in the month, and like post university or like, and and like the response was super positive. So I was like, this is where I have to be. So then I managed to go on the J1 visa for a year, which is like the postgraduate visa that New Zealand does with America. So I did that, and that's when I was like, I put out my first EP, and I was just grinding. I was working, so I was sleeping like 0 to 4 hours, and I managed to like through that I got put on some blogs, and then my visa ran out. I had to come back to New Zealand, and I was like, how? And through that time, I was just like super broke. Just the New York's super expensive, and then if you're trying to, all my money was going back into music. So I got back to New Zealand, and then I had a couple of TV syncs in the States, and one of them was this show, which I would never have thought that's how my life was going to go, but it was called Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, and my song Hold Me was on there, and then it just went to the top of the charts, like in the US, like the R&B charts. So that night, I had every major label reach out, pretty much, like right away. So I went back to the States, signed to Atlantic, like a month after that, and then I was with them for 5 years, and we parted ways like a year and a half ago now, a year and a bit.
I grew up around the metal and hardcore scene, and I've heard really mixed reviews of working with big record labels. What was the experience like for you? Were they supportive? Did they help you grow? Did they help your career? Like financially, was it great? Or
I mean, it's like, I think it can work differently for different people. It didn't work out very well for me. But I also don't think I was the right person. Like I'm very, very creative. I'm very like hands-on. My music was a little different to whatever like was going on. I don't think they really knew what to do with me. I actually love all of the people at Atlantic. Like I didn't have any bad falling outs. But like it was weird. They loved my album. Like I got a message from the head of Atlantic in capitals saying like, this is the best thing. Like there's no he's like, I wouldn't remove one track, and they loved it. And then it took 2 years for the album to come out. So
wow.
Yeah, 2 years, and it was like, because they were like, we want to build you, so we're gonna do this plan, and then also plans never worked. Honestly, the things that I put $0 into are my most successful songs, along with the songs that I produce myself. So it was kind of like a lot of waiting. It was really crushing to just have to send like 100 emails to all these people on copy just to get like, I remember like at the end, just to get my website transferred over. It was literally like months. And you're just like, oh my God, I like being independent so good. I just upload my music onto DistroKid whenever I want. It comes out, like I take all the money from from my streaming, and it's just like, oh, it's the best.
Really? So for any aspiring musician out there, would you recommend pursuing a major label distro deal, or do you say, hey, any up and do it yourself?
Do you know what I think in general with anything? My thing is like, don't pursue anybody with anything. Like if you can sign to a major label, that's fine. But if your goal is to sign to a major label, it may or may not happen. Like your goal should be to like build yourself. And then if other people come in, then that's cool. And if they don't, you're going to do it your own way. Like you never wait on anybody for anything. Like that's why I'm so busy during the pandemic, because I create, like I produce, I record, I do everything here. So I haven't stopped. But I don't know if a label is, I mean, again, you don't really sign, like, you should work with people that are like really believe in you and can do things that you can't do. And I think the label system can work for some people, but you have to be at like, it has to be the right fit. It has to be the right time. You already have to be on a roll. Like, I think record labels they're just kind of like taking the money and like putting the layups in. They're not gonna like shoot the three for you, you know?
Very good basketball metaphor.
I know.
Yeah,
I never said that before. I was like, oh.
Well, you fucking nailed that. That was great. Because you're a basketball fan, right? Is that how you did your ACL or something?
Yeah, my ACL and my Achilles both playing like street games.
Wow, bummer. That sucks. I know. All my injuries are like sports related from Thai boxing. But
But
I'd
they come
imagine,
from like stuff when you like for me, I wasn't even doing anything crazy. Both times it was either coming up or coming down off the layup. Like I can't remember. I don't know because it was such a pain. You know, it happens really quick. But it wasn't
yeah,
something like crazy cool. It wasn't like, I just wasn't anything amazing. What about you? Was yours like, were you at least doing something?
nothing dope. I mean, I have had injuries doing dope things. Like, I got kneed in the head in my first professional fight and had my skull fractured.
Oh
That's
my
that
gosh.
that's a cool story. Nearly
Yeah.
died, or like had this knuckle repaired from professional kickboxing, but the last couple just like suburban dad shit. Like I dropped a kitchen knife on my foot and it went through a tendon, or that
Oh.
that leg reconstruction when I saw you in hospital. I was just going for a run, and I don't know, did something and tore a ligament in half. You know,
That
it's getting,
sucks.
I'm just getting old and clumsy.
Yeah, I think. Well, you know what? Playing basketball wasn't that bad, but I just wish I was like, I don't know, say I was like dunking or something. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I get it, dude. You want cool stories. Like, that's what you're going to take to the grave.
But I feel like I was so hard on my body growing up because I also played like boys rugby. Like I was always like I just did every sport. So like I think now my body like and I would just I'm still like that. I'll take a hit and just be like, just brush it off and then later, feel it. But like not yesterday, the day before, I did this big hike and there was like these like horse jump things. Like the metal things.
Oh,
Someone's
yeah. I don't know
equestrian
I
things.
don't, yeah, I don't know the terminology, but
I
sure.
don't
I
know.
know what
Okay,
you're talking
yeah.
about.
But I was just like decided to do like spin around, so I was spinning around, and all I did was just put my foot on the ground afterwards, and I injured my foot. Like my foot hurts, and I was like, I don't even know. It's just I don't even know what I did.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. I'm always waking up like with new, I don't know, swollen joints and shit. Um, Back to the self-managed
Mhm.
hustle and grind. I guess the internet has been a positive tool in that regard, huh?
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, it's interesting because it's also like makes everything really oversaturated as well. Like I think it's harder to kind of break through, which is why you get a lot of like gimmicks kind of coming through.
Are you saying that there are certain elements of people using the internet that's kind of formulaic and it's not particularly original, or it's not particularly
Yeah, I think it's like about who can get the most attention the quickest.
right?
And
And
even
sometimes,
labels assigning people to signing them to drop them. Like there's like some songs that came out that it may be good songs, but they're kind of like, yeah, I can't really say them because I don't want to be like
yeah,
seeming
yeah.
like I'm hating on somebody. But it's hard to explain. But I just think it is harder to break through. But I
Mm.
do believe that I feel like I always think you can't lose what's meant for you. So like if you're consistent and you work hard, that goes with like relationships, that goes with your career, it goes for anything. If you just keep working, you will get your opportunity or you'll get multiple opportunities. And there's just like varying levels of it. So I think the internet is I went down like a whole other circle. The internet is amazing for being an independent artist. Like to be honest, I don't think you really need a label anymore. A label is what a label is good for is like their bank. They give
Mm.
you a loan and then you owe them for like ever on those songs.
I,
That's
I have I have friends who are like a pretty successful big international touring band, and they signed with their label when they were really young, like a
yeah.
multi-album deal, and it was a really shit deal, but they were young, and now they're kind of forced to bootleg their own merch to make money on tour sometimes,
That's
right?
pretty great. Yeah, it is pretty funny, like, because I mean, okay, so an example of they might give you, say, a label would be like, okay, here's like $200,000, right?
Mm.
Or say $100,000 or whatever, and especially when you're broke, you're like, whoa, that's crazy, like I want that, and then but then they kind of like will spend other money on stuff, even like dinners and everything that they go on that will get charged, and then you all of a sudden you don't know and you owe like $1 million, and
Mm.
then while that's happening you'll never see money from the song until you've recouped, and then even if you're under your deal, when it's recouped they're still going to take like 80%, and then you might get 20%.
And
So
And
You
streaming revenue is brutal too, right? Like you're not
yeah,
making
it's
a lot of money in
but
streams.
you can like I remember when Hold Me when my EP was out on my like DistroKid account at the time because it went to number one. All of a sudden, it was like in the top like viral songs.
Mm.
Within like a month or two, I remember looking at that account before I signed, and it had like $34,000 in it.
Wow. Just
So
from okay, so it's possible because often I read like really negative commentary about like Spotify and different
yeah, I
streaming
mean, you
services.
definitely. Sorry, I cut you off. You definitely like don't get as much as you should as an artist. Like I don't definitely am not getting that at all now. Like now
Yeah.
I'm really like I've been putting out some songs independently and I'm really stoked because I got to a point where it pays my bills.
Right.
Which I'm like, this is a really big achievement because it wasn't like I got a handout of money that it's like, oh, but you owe this. This is like, oh, I earned,
That.
even if it's
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
couple of
yeah.
grand, you're still like, I earned this. It's paying all my bills. So, and it's building like the more music you have. So can you hear like the lawnmower outside?
I can. Is that a lawnmower? I thought it was an aircraft.
It's like a lawnmower. Is it too loud?
No, it's all good.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So they all like it's always quiet, and then the one time, okay, good. As long as it's not too loud for you.
No, we're good.
Yeah. What were we talking about? Streaming.
Streaming.
Okay.
But the point is that you were saying that you can live off your music if you hustle and grind and if you keep a consistency to it.
Yeah, and you build like I mean, there's an artist called Russ who's an amazing example. He put out like a song every week, and you could see he posted his TuneCore money. It went from being like a few dollars to like hundreds of dollars to thousands to him making like I think like crazy, if not hundreds of thousands, at least tens of $1,000s a month now,
Wow.
just because he has such a big catalog. So you can really make good money if you do it yourself. I mean, like it'd be great to have marketing and have the people that like have ins so you can get on Spotify playlists and all that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, you probably what I would like to test now is I'd like to actually find like some people who are good with press and like pay them independently and see how that goes versus being on the label. But all I can say is I did an album with Atlantic. They put it out with all this money for marketing and everything, and it did nowhere near as well as the song that I put up and spent no money on.
Right. It also strikes me that as much as it's great that you can live and pay your bills off your passion, that you'd do this anyway. Like you're not in it to get a mansion.
Yeah.
I mean, like mansion. Yeah, right.
I kind of want that mansion.
Yeah, I would like a mansion too, but
I just want a backyard right now because quarantine. I've like it's changed my like I have like this small apartment. I'm like it changed my perspective on stuff.
Yeah.
No, but you're right. Like before music, I started making money on music. I was putting all my money into music. So if anyone wants to do music, and I especially think like I sound old saying this, young people coming up are like, well, people who are just getting into music now are like, oh, how do you get a record deal? How am I going to do this? And they have one song up. Whereas like, you and me, we played like gigs all around town and like you kind of work your way up. You play shows, then you put your money into recording and then you sell it to your family if you're lucky or like, you know what I mean? Like you might have an auntie that buys a t-shirt,
Yeah.
And then you build. And like I say to people, it's like if you should do it because you would do it whether you make a cent off it or not.
Which is that's amazing life advice for like anything. Yeah. Right? Whether you're a professional kickboxer or a musician or an academic or whatever, right? Like do it because you love it.
Exactly. And then work so hard that you're undeniable and then you're gonna make money. Like, you know what I feel like in anything you do, it's like anything that's really competitive and that requires passion. Your goal, I think your goal has to be bigger than yourself to a degree. It has to be like a spiritual experience. It has to take discipline and like a genuine love. Because some people get lucky and they might be like, oh, I want this for that reason. But it's such a hard road. Like if you just want money, go get like a corporate job, you're going to be guaranteed it a lot better than if you like, going to gigs carrying big bass like rigs up massive stairs and
Yeah, and like, hey man, have you got my check and all of that sort of shit, huh? Do you
Exactly.
do you have a set band that you perform with?
Yeah, I do. I have. I mean, it's been like it evolves because also a lot of the time I just have to kind of do stuff by myself, or I usually kind of do it with a drummer. Like that's my compact traveling thing, just because it's so expensive to tour, So I kind of have my like a self. I have my guitar that I'll play with. I have tracks that I run, and a drummer. But I also have an amazing like guitar player and bass player here and key player. So I much prefer like a full live band, but you know when I get to that next stage and I get that full band budget, then it will be like it'll be like a full thing. I feel like New Zealand's different. New Zealand's like everyone's like, I'll jump up, People just kind
Yeah,
of want to be
yeah,
a part of
yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Here,
right. It's like
the
it's a full-on profession to be a right? Session
yeah,
musician.
I mean, church players here get paid crazy money to play at
Wait,
church.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, really? Like,
Yeah,
how does that work?
I can't like I don't actually. Well, I think the money that the church generates goes into the band, but I remember my drummer being like, because I took my key player in New Zealand on tour when I opened for Flowetry and I did my first tour. I brought him over, and then I had like the drummer in New York and and my key player in New Zealand, Will, he plays for church in New Zealand, and he was like his mind was blown because my drummer Ben was like makes hundreds of dollars, like he pays all his bills from playing for church because they get paid for rehearsals for church, they get paid for like church services, and then church services happen like throughout the week. So
Wow, that's cool.
yeah, it is cool. It's just
Give it
different,
up,
right?
give it up for Jesus.
It's just
Yeah, he's making it rain. Thank you, Jesus. We appreciate you paying those bills. Are you religious yourself?
I would like to think more like I'm more spiritual. Like I grew up with church, like Salvation Army. That was what my parents were, but it wasn't that strict. And so I believe in God, but I also believe you can call God whatever you want to call it.
Mm.
Energy, universe. Like I definitely believe in. I think energy is real. I think like we can attract things. I think there's paths for us. Like I think there's a lot of stuff that's bigger than us that we don't understand. But I'm very open. I'm very open, like spiritually, to being like I don't know, but I think it's nice to be in tune with things and to be like open.
Mm.
How
I
about
just
you?
reflect. Yeah. Thanks for asking. Even though I'm doing the interviewing. No. Yeah. I have faith. I have a tattoo on my arm that says I have faith.
Very cool.
Um. Yeah, I guess so. I woke up. Yeah, this is funny. It's funny you asked me that. I woke up today and I found this really beautiful recording of the Adhan, like the Islamic call to prayer. I
Hmm.
think it's called the Adhan. Sorry if I got that wrong. If you're Muslim, I apologize. And I put it on, man, and I sat down and I started crying. Um, and it was like this really old, ancient sound. And while I don't believe in all the tenets of any particular religion, because a lot of religions strike me as sexist or homophobic or means of men to control others. I do think there are like wonderful, beautiful teachings in all religions, like really good guides on how we can make our way through life and do less harm and help others.
Yeah.
And I think I've been around. I worked in alcohol and drug harm reduction for a long time, and my father's an alcoholic, and I've been around journeys of addiction since I was a child, right? And that's like translated all through my adult life. And the belief in a higher power is like such a fundamental part of pretty much most people I know who've made like a long-term recovery from substance abuse. So yeah, like you say, man, I think like energy is a thing. I think there is something out there. I don't know what to call it. I don't think you need to put heaps of labels and rules and regulations around it, but there's something, like you say, there's something more than I can explain logically and scientifically that is happening on Earth. What
Yeah.
if that's religion? Then I don't know. I'm into it.
I think that's it. And I agree. I have issues with religion because it's man-made and it's like a lot of things are man just like wants power. So you're gonna have things that are not, you know, that help people with what they want, and it's not a people thing, which is why I have issues with a lot of like religion. I think people use religion to do awful things in a lot
Yeah.
of, you know, I think people use a lot of things, but I think energy is real. Like, you know, when like you can tell even when you walk into a room, you can get a feel of somebody, like before you've even opened your mouth. Like, there is something that we all exchange, and I think, you know, when you surround yourself with good people, good things happen. Like, for me, my life, just since I kind of was like, oh, I'm not going to accept this, you pull yourself out of almost like this energetic pull of negativity, and you can you can put yourself into a completely different whirlpool where everybody is being uplifted. And I think that's why you can see a lot of the time like things happen in waves of people, you know, or you see a group of people that are kind of, you know, which is why when you hang out, I think especially the cool thing about getting older is you can really like cull through your people. You can really select, and I'm trying to find the right word, but I can't find the right word for it. But
you become more discerning.
yeah,
I think when to I guess to like feed off that, like when I was young, because I come from like a really kind of dysfunctional childhood, energetically I hang out with like a lot of wildcats, you
yeah,
know, like whether that's the people I choose to have romantic or sexual relationships with, or like my friends who are now dead through drugs and suicide, or they're in prison and shit, right? Like they're my people, right?
yeah,
And even now, like I love extreme people. They make me feel connected in a
yeah,
very like I can walk into a room like, yo, it's my fam, you know.
yeah,
Whereas if I go to like, I don't know, an accounting software firm where everyone comes from like a white picket fence life, I'm speaking broadly, generally, and stereotyping, but
yeah, of
like
course.
I don't feel like, oh, I'm not really sure, like energetically. And I'm sure if I spent time, we would build things, but it doesn't feel like an instant natural connection. But
Well, I
now
think it's,
yeah.
sorry.
No,
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 go.
no. I was just gonna say, like, now I'm older, I can recognize that. When I was young, I didn't recognize that, and
Yeah,
that natural pull isn't necessarily a good thing, you know. Like,
but
can
it's
lead
not
you down the wrong path.
necessarily a bad thing. Like, being
Also
put
true.
together doesn't make you a good person, and being a degenerate doesn't make you a bad person. You know what I mean? Like, we're all.
Degenerates are my favorite people.
I love. That's the thing. I think we're drawn to people. Like, I know, and I think in a lot of ways, people that would be like, I mean, I'm the same. I like people that are a bit different. People have been through stuff. I think that's what, like,
Yeah.
how you pull yourself together. I think the thing is, a lot of the time, people actually have been through things kind of actually have much more coping mechanisms, are a bit more rounded and kind and understanding, and less judgmental. People who've never been through stuff can be really judgmental. Like, as I get older, like, and the things I've been through, I'm just like, I just don't give a fuck. Like, if you're happy and you're not hurting anybody, do whatever you want to do, whatever makes you happy, you know. And I think, from what I know, all the people that I mean, I'm also from like West Auckland, so I'm like you know, Westies are like the original degenerates. Like, that's us. So like, the people I know that had the least, I mean, like, the least growing up were always like the most cool, grounded people. So
Yeah.
I think you're just drawn to the people who kind of get you, but also on the same sense, like, I know when I've been not in a good space, there's been like a self-sabotage that draws myself to people who are also sinking. Like, I remembered this random analogy. I was just thinking about it because, and I posted this on my Instagram. I was like, I used to be a surf lifesaver in New Zealand, and they teach you when somebody is drowning, you can't go right up to them. You have to, like, if you go right up to them, they'll instinctively push you under to try to push themselves up. So you have to stop at a distance. You put the flotation out to them, and you talk to them. You're like, hey, I'm here to help you. Grab onto this. And then, oh, sorry, my mom was calling. You give them the flotation device, and then you have to like talk to them till they're calm. Then you wrap it around. But they have to be in a place where they want to help themselves before you can help them, because they won't know what they're doing. They'll just, so if you go in and you put yourself in that position, you're both going to end up drowning. And I think that that's the same with people. You can do what you can, but you need to protect yourself too. Otherwise, you're no good to anybody. So I think again, understanding your own energy and understanding others, and where you want to go, because when you know where you want to go, you know who you want to be around. Like, I want to be around good people. That doesn't mean they have to be put together. It doesn't mean they have to be rich. It just means they have to have an energy and a drive and a care for other people.
That is deep. I like that. I think that's what I was trying to say, but you said it much better. I wasn't trying to say I only want to hang out with people who are like healed and fixed and like.
Oh no,
like,
I know. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess what you're talking about is boundaries, right?
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Or like I know this term compassionate detachment. You know, like sometimes we can get so enmeshed in someone who's hurt and drowning, and we become part of the problem, trying to be part of the solution. But if you can step back, I'm using my hands to demonstrate.
I like it. I'm a very like.
Yeah. If you can step back, you're going to be more objective and be able to give better advice and support and emotional, I don't know, scaffolding for someone to build on. And at the same time, sometimes you need to step right out of the situation and let that person come to you when they're ready, rather than try and do the work for them, huh?
That's exactly it. I mean, it's like that. Really, you're not helping anybody if you're enabling somebody. You know what I mean? Like, you can't. If an alcoholic wants a drink and you're like, oh, I want to get. They want the drink, so I'm going to give them the drink because it's what they're asking for. You're not helping them. That doesn't make you doesn't make you a good person. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
I
at
do.
the same time, if you're an abusive, like I've been in an abusive relationship, and if you're in an abusive relationship and you stick around because they have issues, that's not helping them, and all it's doing is destroying yourself. So you have to be really like, I feel like sometimes people, it sounds really bad to say, sometimes when people talk about boundaries, like they can be kind of annoying with it, because it's almost like, it's like people become too mechanical and too like, this is my boundary, rather than actually reading into the situation. But I think that's not always the case. I just find sometimes I don't really use that word. I'm not against it. I just feel like I'm very self-aware now, like more than I used to be. So I think if you're self-aware, you can be really aware of how someone is like making you feel and why they might be doing that as well. And then you can make a good judgment on what you should be doing. Like for example, the last guy that I was with, he just like wasn't a bad person. He just wanted to like wanted to do other people. He just like wanted to be, explore life and do those things. But I think he also knew he had me, and like he didn't want to lose that. But then that tension of not making a decision, it ended up making things really bad for me. So I have the choice of whether to be like, oh, you're a terrible person, you hurt me, you did this. Or I can be like, oh, you hurt me, therefore I need to like get away. But I can also, because I'm self-aware enough, I can now know that that actually had nothing to do with me. It didn't make me less valuable. It just meant that that person had some issues that they needed to work on. Doesn't make them a bad person, but it means that doesn't make them a bad person. I can see why and how they got to all the aspects of the things they did. Like you can kind of, again, when you're aware enough, you can break it down. Like later on, in the moment, you're just like hurt. But it doesn't mean that I have to stay in it. But it also doesn't mean I have to hate the person. If that, I don't know if that makes any sense.
That makes perfect sense, but that's quite evolved thinking. And I'm not trying to like gas you up here, but like a lot of people, we always, if someone hurts us, and we want to demonize them and not look at them in the context of who they are. We focus on the thing that they did. We do that societally all the time. We other people and focus on this one particular behavior or action or event that may have happened or did happen, and then we divorce that from who that person is and how they came to be where they are. So for you to say, well, they did a hurtful thing, but that doesn't make them a hurtful person, I think that's quite, that's evolved. It's evolved, yeah.
I think it's finding a balance though, right? Because there's a line between making excuses for somebody and understanding somebody. Like,
yeah.
Just because I can see how that happened doesn't mean that I should be involved. Like,
yeah.
That's the key. Because I think especially for anybody, especially when it comes to relationships, when you get love, you know, when someone does something, you're kind of like, even down to like, that's why people can stay. And my last ex wasn't an abusive, because I'm like merging these things in case someone's like, this guy was abusive. He wasn't abusive. Just clearing that up. But why people do stay in abusive relationships, because they're like, oh, this happened to this person, and like, I love them, and they're sorry, and they say they won't do it. And like, you know, from an outside perspective, you're like, whoa, you have to get out of this. But when you're in something and you love someone, and abusive doesn't have to be physical, like it can be emotional, it can be like a bunch of things, you know what I mean? When someone has issues and you can see it and you want to help them, but that's like, you shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? You need to be away. You need to be like, okay, I can see that that's how you got to where you got to. But you need to get help, and I need to get help, and I need to be happy, and this doesn't work towards the life I want. Like, and that also helps now. What I do, I make decisions differently at the moment. I make decisions based on, does this contribute to the life I want? And if I can answer yes, so like that means like, okay, does me going and hanging out with my ex, even if I want to, or it feels nice, does that contribute? Does this going to work out well? Does this contribute to a life? No. Okay, then I can't do that. Does going in like, just like making, you know, doesn't mean you can't go out and like date, but for me, I'm like, unless I see a future with someone, I'm not going to like move in with them again. Or, you know what I mean?
That's a good choice.
Yeah, I was just like taking some time.
You've touched on being in an abusive relationship a couple of times in the last couple of minutes. Like, did you want to talk about that?
Not actually really. I don't really like, I mean, I'm not against it. I don't really feel like I need, you know, too much. It was more just to kind of like clarify.
Right.
Like
right.
a point. Yeah. I don't really like, I'm pretty open with stuff. I just think sometimes people are like, oh yeah, that mindset's all good, but what about real stuff? And then I'm like, well, it does apply to real stuff, because I've been through some real stuff, you know, and there's like, all of these mindsets and positivity can still be achieved through like the darkest shit you've ever been through.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I think that's one of the negatives of social media. Because I'm the same as you, to some degree. I mean, I'm not the same as you, but like the point I'm trying to
I
make.
think you and I have shared some pretty. We both been in like, even just following out posts, you'd see some pretty in your feelings posts of like depression, and then I think you and I over the last few years have just kind of been like finding ways out.
Yeah, totally. Like,
yeah.
yeah, I've been through some really dark times, and we all have, and we've all had our struggles and stuff like that. But I try and also put out a message of positivity, and we can take control of our destinies to some degree, no matter what's happened to us and where we come from. And some of the criticism that I get is like, oh, you're just a privileged motherfucker, blah, 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 blah. What do you know? And I'm like, man, I grew up like visiting my father in rehab and with the police coming to my house. And I spent like a good portion of my 30s living with shame and guilt from my marriage dissolving and all this sort of shit. You know what I mean? And like, I think that's what the bummer with social media is, and I don't know if this is true of you, but people don't see the context from which you come. They just see where you are now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what it is. I feel very blessed, and I mean, I don't know if this will stay the same, but I have the most lovely fans that are like so supportive and like amazing and kind of it like in touch. I think there's something. I think music's a bit more helpful because not just pictures, right? People listen to your music so they hear your story and they can feel your soul. So I have that kind of. But if someone just climbed onto my Instagram, they might just be like, what does she know about anything, you know? It is interesting. It's a different thing, but from what even from like, I remember like the first real support group I went to for like certain things when I came to New York, and like the people there were so strong and so amazing, and like they wanted to be happy. And when they told their stories, it was like it just broke my heart. And I was like, it's very much how bad do you want to be happy? And sometimes even still I'll get really depressed. I just kind of know I can like ride it out. You know, I mean, I know like how life is, it comes in waves, but I also know like certain things and triggers that are going to get you to that depression quicker, and how to like try to stay out so you don't like get pulled under, you know. But I think there's a real, like anything, I just kind of try to surround myself with people who want to be happy, or at least want to like make other people happy, or like do something that helps, you know. I think if you can have that attitude, you can work towards overcoming things, and it's not going to happen right away. You're not going to be able to understand what went wrong in your life or why someone hurt you. You're just going to feel like it's you and it's your fault and it's all these things. But with time, you can really like develop. It's just, do you want that, you know?
Yeah, perspective.
And some people don't want that. Some people might have stubbed their toe one time and still be like, oh my God, my life is so hard. Like, you know what I mean? And then there's other people who've literally been through everything unimaginable that are like, have the biggest smile on their face.
Yeah. I think when we get caught up, I think when our identities, and I've done this a little, I think, and I'm working on not doing it. I think when our identities get caught up in our victimhood or in our suffering, and that becomes part of who we are, not just something that happened to us or that we did, then it just becomes a self-perpetuating thing, you know. Whereas if we can separate the event from the person, then we can move forwards in life and grow and heal and turn back around and help others by sharing what we've learned on our journey, huh? I think whenever I've been with my friends who've been through AA or NA, or they've been through prison, or, you know, they've been through profound, deep, difficult, hard experiences, like you're saying with the support groups, they're the deepest, wisest, most onto it people with so much wisdom to share with others, huh?
Yeah. I mean, just think how many people you have helped with your story, with you being the role model you are for other people. Like, if you hadn't experienced the things you had, you would not be able to influence people the way you do.
Yeah, thanks. That's kind of you to say.
I mean, it's like, no, I mean, it's true. And it's like how I remember, like, I went through something when I was younger, and I woke up, I remember like for like 10 years just being like, man, I just wanted to like wake up and be like, this wasn't the truth. And then I remember I was like, it was actually after like a support group, and I was like, you know, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
Like, I have even like I even wrote, like, actually back in the day, a long time ago, I wrote that lyric that was like, and even though it hurts, I wouldn't change anything. I'm grateful for each day, even with the pain it brings. And it was like a realization that those experiences allowed me to write about what I do. And I get so many messages from people saying that my music saved their life.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you know what? If I had to experience that to save one life, I would. And then the fact that my experience and the things that I write about and who I am because of it has touched people, then it's like, that's a price I'd pay.
I was having a very similar theme of conversation with someone. I can't remember precisely what they'd been through, but I think it was a story of recovery and loss, and, you know, they'd had a pretty traumatic experience of abuse when they were a kid and stuff, right? And they said exactly the same thing. They were like, I'm happy with who I am and what I do now, and I wouldn't do it if it wasn't for that. So it's interesting hearing you say the same thing in the short space of day. I'm trying to figure out, like, is that a unique, you know, like, I guess I'm trying to look for the connection, you know, like.
Well, I think it's like, it's, you know, it's so funny because I would just, you know, you definitely, like, it's interesting that you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm spiritual, or I don't know that I, like, you kind of, because from an outside, you have such a, like, strong, like, positive energy that you, like, put out, and such a, like, self-aware, which I think comes from all of the, like, trying to figure things out and trying to get better. But literally who you are, and you've always been, from, like, since I've known you, such a positive role model for people, even through, like, whatever fuck ups we've had, you know. I think that's what makes us relatable and makes people willing to change, you know. So I think for you, it's like, I think you have a path. I think you're on the path, and I don't know, I'm not going to put a name to whatever that is or whoever put that there for you, but I think energetically you're here to help people, and you don't even know who you're helping sometimes. So I think that's what.
Thanks, Janine. I'm going to call you anytime I'm sad, because you're giving me a great pep talk right now.
I got you. I'm like, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that PMA, the positive attitude.
But I will say as well, as to what you were saying, I do think sometimes we fall in love with our victim stories. And honestly, it's funny because I think about sometimes I'm like, I honestly like remember my stories, like, and I claim them. And then sometimes I'm like, that's a lifetime ago. Even relationships, like think about like relationships when you were like 20 or like a teenager, right? And that's a part of your story. But if you're being honest, it's kind of so disconnected from your real life now that it's kind of just like a movie you watched one time. It's not your life. And sometimes you have to look and be like, oh, you can claim it and be like, that's cool. That's also like who made me. But then also being like, what if I just let go of that? What if I wasn't the victim? What if I'm just like a person and like I am who I want to be in this moment. And from this moment on, I create who I am and what my story is and what stories are important. Like, why does the negative story have to be as important as like something that you were like, hey, remember that time I fucking aced that test? You know what I mean? Why can't that be our story?
I struggle with that. That's deep. Because I quote this often. There's the author Chuck, I think it's Falaniuk is how you pronounce it. He wrote Fight Club and a whole range of amazing books. And in one of his books, he says something along the lines of, "There's no scar for happiness." Like it's our wounds that we can see all the time. Because I'm like that. Like there are fucking annoying playback loops in my head of like dumb shit or people I hurt or people who hurt me still going on. Like despite this, I'm trying to like just be positive and do good things, and I'm trying to figure out how to turn those feedback loops off, or put them down, or put the weight down, or put the guilt or the shame, or I wish I'd known this then down, but they fucking are still there.
Dude, I'll be in bed thinking like, man, that time when I was 8 and I
yeah.
I didn't give the person like some of my lunch or whatever that's not a thing. But like
But yeah, I get it. Yeah, right? Like
you have those little things. I'll literally think about stuff that was like when I was really young and so dumb and like also and some things I blame myself for that I'll like try to forgive myself for. Like I remember sometimes when I'm being really hard on myself. Now, also, this is all easier to say while in a positive mindset. I also notice myself, and I have a pattern that when I start going down, I start to become self-destructive. I'll have urges to message people that have hurt me and like all this stuff. So because I know now, I try to minimize the damage and not go down that road, But also, when I do go down, I start fixating on my worst moments. And like all those things, like they fixate. So they're not like, it's easy. Like I said, it's easier for me to say this at this point. I was gonna say something else, and then I went sidetracked.
No, but it's easier for you to say this at point because you're in a good space now.
Yeah. But
whereas if I caught you another day,
to say this, and then I was like, wait, what was this again?
What was it? Yeah. I'm the same. Like, if you catch me, like I'm having a great week this week. But if you talked to me a month ago, I was a mess, and this would be potentially a really different conversation. And I guess there's some sort of, I find, degree of comfort in wallowing in your sorrow, or there's some sort of, I don't know, like, I'm trying to figure it out. Because I love sad songs, and I love melancholy, and I've covered my fucking stupid body in, like, these sad tattoos. And, like, I'm like, why is that? Like,
maybe it's because you feel more. I think sometimes we just want to feel something, and, like, also, I went to, like, a study, like, I went to this talk, and I'm going to butcher all of the real academic details.
I do it all the time myself, don't worry.
But the general gist is that there is a part of our brain that stores information, and it stores 2/3 negative information for survival. So basically, back in the day when we were like, living in caves, it would be like, hey, you should remember not to go touch that saber-toothed tiger because it's gonna hurt you. And like that survival instinct of storing more negative than positive information. So that has just evolved to today's society, where we naturally store 2/3 negative information. Don't know the full details, but I was like, that makes sense. Even down to like everything that is clickbait is always like, we're more enticed by that. Like
bad news, right?
Yeah. Like people are. I mean, it's like even, you know, I'm sure with things that happen with politics and like the virus and everything, it's like you just can't pull yourself away from something that's like poisoning your mind, even if you can't do anything about it. Like, you know. So I think it's like, again, but being aware of that and knowing what it is and knowing like, does this, what I am doing right now, lead towards the life that I want? Am I living the life that I want? Because I think we are living the life that we want to a degree anyway. It's just like the scale. Like right now, I'm like, oh, I'm a musician. I have good people around me. I have this, you know? So it's just like, I live the life I want to live, and then knowing that I just want that to get bigger. So I'm performing on bigger stages. I have a bigger house. I have space so my family can come stay, you know, like things that you do. And so I think I try to keep that in check, even with, you know, like I was out, you know, obviously marching for Black Lives Matter over here and all that stuff. And it was sort of like, you start going through everything. And then I'm like, cool, so what can I do? I'm reading this, I'm sad. I'm like, okay, so I'll make a song. I can march, I can support, I can donate. And like, of course I'm going to be sad, and that's the thing. But it's like, okay, what actions can I take? With the pandemic, when that happened, I was like, all right, I was looking at reading all the stuff. Everyone's all worried. And I was like, what does worrying do to serve me? Okay, so I have this time. I'm going to educate myself, be as good a person I can, and just dive into work, because I had other people that were like just messaging conspiracy theories 24/7. And I'm like, but that doesn't help me. What does that do? Because I can't do anything about it right now. If you can't, it's, I mean, isn't that like the AA? Don't they have the AA slogan? It was like,
it's a Serenity prayer. It's like, God grant me the serenity to something or other, like know what I can change, know what I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Exactly. Except like change the things that I can.
Accept the things that I can't,
and the
wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah, I love that. I had it on like a necklace at one point, and I was like, I think it's really important. And then also, like, honestly, that would be something I would keep in mind for everyone, is like, does my current situation, does the thing I'm fixating on, does that lead towards what my ideal life is? Because everyone's like been in that relationship where they're like, oh, I know this person's not my forever, and I can't have all the things I want while I'm with this person, because they have their own shit that they need to figure out. But they're like, oh, well, I'll just stay in it for now. Or they'll be like, this person's not good for me, but I'm going to go have lunch with them anyway. And it's like, does that life, does that person, does that energy support the life that you want to be living and the things you want to achieve?
Yeah. You're asking me some confronting questions. I see a future for you in motivational speaking. Should you ever decide to not be a musician, you want to be like Tony Robbins or some shit.
I would love to do that. I actually had someone like say that the other day. I'm quite honest and blunt though too, so I don't know.
But that's good. People need that.
Yeah.
Like, what? I'm sure you're polarizing. Like, I'm polarizing. People either think I'm like great or they fucking hate me. You know. So.
I can't imagine that. I feel like I can't imagine somebody hating you.
It's definitely a thing. There are a lot of people who don't like me, and that's okay. Like, what I've come to learn, and it's really hard because there's a wounded little kid in me that wants everyone to love him, and he'll like try real hard to make you like me. But like, I do have strong opinions, and I am really blunt, and you know, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. And like, if I bend over backwards, if any of us bend over backwards to try and make other people like us, we stop being our authentic selves, and then we become unhappy trying to fit this mold of what we're never going to be everyone's cup of tea. Right?
Also, people generally also gravitate towards people who don't care whether they like them or not. Like, that's the funny thing. Like, I was, like, even the last time I would have seen you, like, I was so obsessed with being liked and, like, you know, and all that. And honestly, now it's like, it's so fun to not give a fuck. Like, and I still do, but not to like the degree I did. And life is so much more fun. And the funny thing is I've noticed, like, now with the people that I was just like, hi, can you like me? Like, now that I'm like, I don't give a fuck if you do or not. It'd be cool if you do, but like, whatever. Like the ones that are like, hey, what's up? You know, it's like people, people, I don't know, they're just like drawn to it.
I think when you start,
it's more genuine.
Yeah, I think when you start just being accepting of yourself and loving yourself, puts that energy out that we've kind of been touching on, you know, and people will gravitate to that. When you put out like a neediness to be desired and liked and accepted and approved, it actually creates like a force field between you and the realness.
Yeah.
That's
Everyone
not.
wants to be
Yeah.
around a good vibe. Like, you know,
Yeah.
when you hang out with somebody and you feel good after? Like, that's how I want everyone to feel after hanging out with me. And that's how I want to feel after, like, hanging out with everyone that I hang out with. And that's what I do. Like, I try to. I mean, it's not always going to be like that. You're going to have off days and you're going to be like, that's fine. But, like, if you stay around people that you feel good, and that's what I do now. Whereas, to be honest, like, in the past, I was around people who just broke me down to the point where, like, I was in tears every day. And, like,
Oh.
I couldn't achieve anything because my brain was so in such a, like, I literally felt like everything was hazy for, like, years. Just like a haze. A constant up and down haze, you know? And that's, like, that's who you surround yourself with. And yes, it's their fault, but also it's your fault for being around it. You know?
Yo, that's the thing. It's the thing, but people don't like that. I just put this thing out the other day about life is not what happens to you, it's what you choose to become. And some people vibe with it, and some people are like, no, what about this, and this? But, you know, there's this seminal work that I quote all the time. I think it's Man's Quest for Meaning, or Man's Quest, by a guy called Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist, psychologist. He was like, he went to Auschwitz. Like, he went to a death camp during World War II. He's Jewish. And he wrote this amazing work, like, about how, look, even in the midst of that suffering, he could still notice the beautiful landscape around him. You know, I've met, you know, there are people out there now, like David Goggins. I don't know if you follow him online.
Oh,
Like,
my like best friend always goes on, like, he talks a lot.
yeah, David Goggins grew up in the most horrific, like, abusive dad, all this sort of stuff, and like, he's made himself. You know, like, I truly believe we can overcome our starts in life, and I know that's a very individualistic take on life, and I know that's maybe a really privileged take on life. I am aware that, like, yeah, I'm a fucking white guy in New Zealand. I have all these advantages that other people may not have, and I'm really cognizant that it's an unequal, inequitable, racist, sexist society that we still have to endure. But man, we can all still overcome where we've come from, and there are a million examples. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not like saying, sorry, I keep cutting you off.
No, please
there's
do.
like there's like maybe the little break in the internet. There'll be like a little break, and then I'm like, ooh, time to. No, you're not saying like, oh, everyone can be a billionaire. You know
I'm not saying.
You're not saying, oh, everyone can get a job on the first, like, you know, we know that we live in a very biased society. We live in like a very sexist, a very racist, a very like wealth dividing society. I think everything in life is built to break us up and make things harder for certain groups of people, and there's no arguing that. But I would say that I would argue that the groups of people that have been through the worst usually have the greatest sense of community and the greatest sense of trying to find happiness. Yeah. You see it over here. I mean, like in America with cultures that have been through like so much oppression and yet are like some of the most like positive, loving people, despite everything that generationally has like happened to them. And I think that you're talking about a mindset. You're saying,
yeah, I'm talking about a mindset. I'm not trying to ignore like
feel good.
Yeah.
And you're saying that I think that you're saying people can put in the work to see things differently. Like, it's all perspective. I have little things that just like make me like very grateful. Sometimes like when I eat fruit, like a berry or something, and I'm like, holy crap, this is something that like grows on the earth that we didn't have to do anything, and it tastes this good, and it's just here to nourish my body. Like, what an amazing existence. Or like when I have like stay in the shower and like I have hot water in my body, and I'm like, what if I couldn't shower? Or like when I'm in bed and I get into my bed and I'm, you know, when you're so tired and you climb into bed and you're like, oh, this feels so good. And I'll like imagine myself being like cold on the street and just being like, sometimes I'll put myself in that situation and then allow myself. And I almost imagine someone gave me that. This is so strange, but I'll be in bed and then I'll be like, put myself in the position to be on the street, and then imagine I'm like, someone gifted me the opportunity and changed my life and put me in that bed. And all of a sudden your perspective on your gratitude is just like, oh my God, I'm so comfortable. Imagine if I was cold and I'm warm. You know, imagine if those things, and yet, you know, like I love my little spot. I'm like stoked. I have this studio apartment. Like it's chill. But there's some people that would be in my apartment that would be like, oh, my life is over. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's it. I see people who have fucking heaps, like materially, moaning about what they don't have.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You know, like a lot of people focus on the deficits, on what they don't have, not what they do.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you can have this attitude of gratitude. That sounded really corny, but you can be grateful for
it. I'm all for it.
But
I'm like,
you
go
can.
deep, go corny. I'm here for it.
Thank you. Well, you can be grateful for what you have and count your blessings and shift your mindset and still pay attention to the injustice of the world and do your best to play your part, making things better, right? Like it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, and this, you know, it's not, these rules don't apply for everything, but I think a lot of people don't need a change in scenery. They literally need a change in vision. Like the same things that you see are different to somebody else. You walk the same street. Like I live in LA now. Like I'll be like just looking up at palm trees and blue skies, and it's like becomes your norm. And sometimes I'll be like, just like I'll go to the beach and I'll be like, man, someone traveled across the world just to do what I'm doing now for fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you could be sitting there being like, nah, I'm stuck in traffic or whatever. Like it's, and other people, like people who live in New Zealand, you know how many people are always like, especially here, like, oh my God, I want to go to New Zealand, you know? It's like, and then people are just kind of, there's so much beauty everywhere and there's so many things. And you know what, like, even if it's not the best, isn't it like, doesn't life so much more fun to think everything's the best or try to?
Yeah. Yo, word. Yeah,
like it's more fun to focus on the positive. Like let's take coronavirus, for example. You got two ways to look at it. I chose to look at it like, great, this is awesome. Also, I'm already an independent artist. I do all my shit. This is my time to shine. I'm going to stay in. I can like give my body a break from the gym. I'm going to go do some like outdoor hikes. It's my outdoor time. I'm going to work out at home. I'm going to work on music. I'm going to spend extra time to call my family, you know? And I was like, this is great. Obviously not people being sick and dying. That's awful. And like, I'm literally can't speak to that. But I'm saying rather than standing there and being like, man, I can't go to this party. Oh man, I can't go like hook up with random people, you know, whatever everybody's goals or motivations are. Like, I heard people being like, I'm so bored. I'm never bored. I don't get the concept of people being like I got, my phone died and I waited 40 minutes for my friend to pick me up and I literally had nothing to look at. And I was like, okay, this is a time I could be bored. And I was like, all right, well, let me just start cleaning up my brain. What can I work on in my head? Like, so I think the perspective, even seeing how people have approached this time is very like interesting to me.
Word. I totally agree with you.
And even if it does suck, you're missing the party. Isn't it more fun to be like, yes, I'm gonna, like, do you know how many people are always like, man, I just wish I could take like a month off and just watch TV all day.
Yeah,
and then they can, and everyone's complaining. I remember while everyone's complaining, I was like, I bet you if you actually said to them, all right, you can go back to work tomorrow, all the people that were complaining would be like, no, wait, what? I'm not ready.
Yeah.
People just love to play. People love to be the victim sometimes in those like in non-victimizing situations. You know, I don't know if that's a word.
No, it's all right. We can make it words. So this has been great. We should definitely do this again because I think we got a lot to talk about. Just quickly, when we finish up, what's next for you? Like, with COVID and I guess you're not touring. Like, do you have what's next, or are you just doing it day by day?
Yeah, I have like a song. I just got the master back for today, and it sounds amazing. I'm super excited. I actually shot a video with some people. We did it like everyone got COVID tested, and so we're working on like it was all very life's so funny and different. And then I also have a song that I'm like featuring on a couple of other songs that are coming out. So I have a lot of like new music. I'll probably do some more virtual shows.
Cool.
And yeah, I'm just kind of like figuring out my timeline, but just like lots more music coming out.
Right, so it's just same old, but not in a boring way, in a routine way, but in like I'm out here making the most of my life way.
Yeah, honestly, I feel really good. I feel like I've just had a bunch of artists that are doing like a lot further ahead in their careers reach out to me recently, like just as wanting to work with me. I feel like I'm on the verge of something, and it feels really cool because I feel like mentally ready. I feel mentally, physically ready and happy and like ready to accept my blessings, you know? I feel like it's a good time to be in that environment. I feel like as much as I would have loved it when I was like 20, it's good to know that I think things happen when they're meant to, you know? And I feel like something good's really, looks like some good things are on their way.
Well, I'm gonna send out some of my positive energy into the energy of the universe,
Yes,
and I hope that happens for you. Yeah,
thank
keep
you.
keep doing what you're doing. You're it's a law of attraction thing. So yeah.
We're all just like good energies trying to like help each other out and have good
Yeah,
lives. And
yeah.
I think all the people that I feel like I'm around right now, I'm just like I want everybody to win. And like I don't know. I think it's a time of life for good people to kind of like rise. So I think everybody's like everyone that's just been working hard and being nice. I'm like it's gonna be their time soon.
This has been great. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with me. And yeah, let's do it again soon.
Thank you for having me. Sorry, I don't think I let you get too many words, and I was a bit excited.
That's all right. I'm interviewing you.
Oh.
So that's how it's meant to go.
Okay, cool.